And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. And they went and came to Moses and to Aaron, and to all the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them, and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, We came into the land whither thou sentest, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities all walled and are very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses, and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight.
All right. Well, I'm not going to have my coat on while I'm preaching because I'm soaking wet still, so hope that's okay. But today we are continuing our journey through the wilderness. And how do we respond in moments where we are in scarcity, where we are facing the unknown, and things are difficult? In one of my favorite movies and books, Jurassic Park. Sorry, I can't get away from these illustrations, but just bear with me. There's a man by the name of Donald Gennaro, and Donald is an attorney whose responsibility is to get all these experts together and for them to sign off on the park so that they can open Jurassic Park. And if you don't know what Jurassic Park is, it's dinosaurs. Okay, so just dinosaurs, and so their goal is to get the park open so they can start making money. And as the movie progresses, they get all the experts and they put them in these Ford Expeditions. They get the grandchildren of the owner of the park, and they're going through, and they're right at the T-Rex fence line and everything, and the electricity goes out. And it goes out at the worst moment, and just to keep the story moving, the T-Rex is right there where the fence is when the electricity goes out, so the T-Rex breaks free. And Donald looking at this, and he's got experts in the car, he's got children in the car with him, and he decides that his best course of action is to get out of the car and to run like 30 yards behind him to a bathroom that's made of wood, thinking that somehow that T-Rex is not going to recognize him, not going to see a moving target and think to attack him. And so Donald runs, and the T-Rex starts to look at him and then chases him. He gets into the bathroom, shuts the door, locks it, and thinks that that's going to stop hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of T-Rex. Well, if you've seen the movie, or spoiler alert, it's been out for like 30 years now, he gets eaten. See, fear gets us to do things that are irrational and that do not make sense. And anytime if we were to look at a situation and we're under normal circumstances and no pressure, we typically don't make the decisions we do if we were in a mode of fear. What's interesting is that what controls fear for you is the amygdala, and it sits at the cerebral cortex, which is right here in the back of your neck. It's about the size of a walnut. Its goal is to get you living to the next day. It doesn't care how it does it. It just wants you to get to the next day. And so it introduces fear into your life to steer you away from danger. The interesting thing is that the size of a walnut can control not only your physical actions, but it can decide how you respond to situations and see those situations. In Chapman University, they do a study on fear. They release an annual survey every year. And what they do is they compile a list of the most commonly held fears. So fears that we all share. Chapman University has been doing this for 11 years. Does anybody want to guess what the very first fear is? The number one fear that we have in common. It is corrupt government officials. It's been that way for 10 years. There's nothing there. It's just been there for 10 years. Secondly, it's not I would expect that, but no. It is the people that you love becoming seriously ill. The third is an economic collapse for you personally. Fourth is cyber terrorism, and think of somebody stealing your identity, getting all of your information, taking all of your money. And fifth is the people that you love dying. Those are the top 5 fears that we all have as Americans. As we start to broaden out fear a little bit, and you start to look at anxiety, with fear being the base of that, 19% of adults in America struggle with anxiety. 32% will admit to struggling with it at some point in their life, and every time they do those numbers go up. Anxiety is a growing struggle for Americans. And so I share all of that because fear is becoming more and more of a staple in our society. And this becomes increasingly true as you walk through the wilderness. When you are in moments of unknown and you feel the pressure and you are in moments of scarcity and you don't know how you're going to make ends meet, your amygdala starts to go into overdrive. And how we respond matters. What's really interesting is that fear has this ability to wiggle its way into your faith and uproot something that was so strong the day before. That fear can somehow come in and you can be fine, great, doing well the first day and you're trusting the Lord. And the very next day, fear has completely changed everything for you. And now you're doubting if God's there, you're struggling to see God move, and you're asking God, where are you? And so how we respond in the wilderness, and specifically with our anxieties and our fears in those moments, matter greatly. Because as we get to Numbers 13, we get to see 2 examples of someone that's trusting God and who has handled those moments with great trust and great faith, and we're looking at the people of Israel. The people of Israel approached the Promised Land. And what's interesting is you get 2 different accounts in Numbers and Deuteronomy. In Numbers, it just says that the Lord allowed them to send spies into the land. In Deuteronomy, you get a better picture that the people of Israel are approaching the Promised Land with great fear and filled with complaining. And so what they do is they say, God, we want to send spies into the land, and the Lord allows them to. So the Lord never told them to send spies in the land. It's something that they're doing because they're struggling. So it matters. So let's go ahead and jump into the story. Numbers 13, we're going to go 26 to 31. It says, they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. This is the 12 spies that got selected. They're coming back to let them know what's happened. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. So what you're getting is that the 12 spies have come back. They've explored the land. They're returning, and they're showing the fruit of the land. There's fruit and all of this bountiful blessing that the Lord has told them about. And so they've gotten the people of Israel together, and there are hundreds of thousands of them at this point. And so you're listening, everybody's intent, hanging on every word. And there's 11 spies that say, hey, the land is great, but we cannot take it. And it is only Caleb who says, man, we can do this. The Lord is with us, and he will certainly allow us to take the land. And what I want you to see is we've got to start putting the bigger story here of how they've traveled through the wilderness. Now remember that the Lord has taken them out of Egypt, and he's brought them for months and months and months of travel to get to the Promised Land. And they have encountered 3 tests. And the tests are not pass and fail. The tests its goal is to refine you, to refine them, to pull the Egypt out of them, to pull the mindset of slavery out of them, and to put in a people of faith and people that belong to God, to give them a new identity. But every time that they've gone up to the water, or the first test, when they go up to the water, Instead of trusting God, they begin to complain. And again, when they begin to run low on food and they do not have any, instead of trusting God and asking Him to help, they complain again. Then they go to Mount Sinai, and this is going to be the moment where God officially makes the people of Israel His people, where He makes them a kingdom of priests. And instead of stepping in and trusting what the Lord's going to do in that moment, the people back away. And so now, by the time that they get to the promised land, this moment that is supposed to be of great triumph, of great faith, where the people of Israel are going in and the Lord is just doing all these miraculous things, they're not stepping into the situation, they're stepping back. And as we look at our own lives in the wilderness, there is 2 examples here for you to follow. But you need to know that the steps that you are taking now will determine your future. Every step you take builds the path ahead. What the Lord was doing in each of those tests was not to try to sit back and see them squirm. His goal was not to see them suffer. His goal was to put them in a difficult situation so that they could have their idols rise to the top of their hearts and God could scoop it out and replace it with a new identity. But because they failed at the small things, at the small steps, when it came time for them to cross the finish line, they were not ready for it. And so hear me, what we tend to do is that we focus so much at the light at the end of the tunnel, we focus so much on the finish line that we forget the journey that you're on. And so instead of taking that moments to trust God in the journey, all our minds are set on is when we get there. But if you do not handle the opportunities that God gives you, you will not be ready for what God has for you at the finish line. You will not be ready to cross in faith that next test that He has for you. And so what you do, each step, each moment, each day matters, because it is either going to be building your faith in the wilderness or it is going to be taking it away. And if we do not handle our situations well and we do not prepare, then by the time that God's ready to do something big in your life, you will not be ready. And you will miss out on what God's trying to do. A couple of weeks ago, I got the grand idea to wallpaper a bathroom. And if you've never wallpapered in your life before, let me tell you, it is the funnest thing you could ever do. I'm just kidding. I should not lie in church. No, it is the worst thing you could ever do. And so we get this wallpaper, and it's one of those peel and stick, because I'm not doing all the other stuff. We're just going to keep it real simple. Peel and stick wallpaper. And so my very first corner that I got, I did well on, got my corners right. But see, our house is built in 1897. And so there's no such thing as like a flat line, a straight line. Everything is like Willy Wonkied. I don't know the proper term for that. But I go into my second piece, and I cut it, and I had something that distracted me when I cut it, one of my children. And so I didn't cut it right. And I go to put it on the wall, and I placed it there, and I'm like, man, that's good enough. So what I do is like, okay, we'll come back and address that in a later time. We're going to start with the third piece. And so I get my third piece, and I'm sitting there, and I'm applying it, and it's just not lining up like I need it to. And so I'm either got it straight with the wall and completely off my second piece of wallpaper, or I can have it on my wallpaper, but there's just like a huge gap in the wall and paint's shining through and everything. And so I'm sitting there, and I peel it off, and I'm like, maybe I just didn't apply it the first time. Silly Bruce. And so I go to put it up the second time, and it doesn't fit again. The third time, I'm like, okay, this time we're going to be real exact, real precise. And I take like 5 minutes to apply the wallpaper, and I'm like pulling at the edge and like kind of ripping the wallpaper a little bit. And I'm like, nobody will notice that. And so I stick it on there, and it still doesn't fit. It's still off. And so I get the fun job of ripping that off and ripping my second piece off, because I've recognized that because my second piece is off, guess what's off? My third piece. And I share that because following Jesus, when you are in the wilderness, what you do at step 1 and step 2 will impact what you're doing at step 3 and step 4. How we handle the wilderness at the very beginning, when things are small and problems seem this big, is going to determine your faith when things are this big. And so I think we just get it wrong in our mind. We read these stories in Scripture, and we're like, man, how could they miss it? How do you not have the faith? And we do the same thing. We will see and watch God move, And the next day we turn around and we still doubt and we still frustrate and we still upset and we still try to figure out things on our own. And instead of trusting God, we go back to what they're doing. What you do every day, minute in and minute out, hour in and hour out, matters. How you face your problems matter. Your journey is more important than your destination because the journey prepares you for your destination. Let's keep going. Numbers 13, 30 to 33. It says, Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad reports about the land that they had explored. And they said, The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size, and we saw the Nephilim. There, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. I want you to see the wide difference in their responses. Caleb had handled each moment, each part of the journey, and this is the first time we're introduced to Caleb, but we know by his response that how he handled things before must have been moments of faith. Because he looks at this situation and he is only seeing God and his promises. But the people of Israel, what they have begun to do is because they have not followed God well, they are focusing on their problem. That is so key for us because as we journey through the wilderness, you have a decision, and this is where fear begins to play a big part. What fear will do, anxiety will do, is that we will begin to focus on our problems, and we will feed our problems, and we'll feed our problems, and then we will just start to work through how 10 different ways this thing could go sideways. We think through the worst possible way. And so we will feed our problem, and as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, eventually it gets bigger than God. And you will either choose to respond in 2 different ways. You can sit back and you can trust God, and Caleb is not ignoring that there's a problem. But Caleb's faith is bigger than the problem. I want you to see how they flip-flop between that. For Caleb, he's saying, man, God is bigger, and he said he's going to deliver us into the promised land. Let's go up and take it. Yes, there's going to be a fight. Yes, there's going to be struggle. But at the end of the day, it is the Lord who delivers. For the people of Israel, what they are only focused on is the problem. And so for them, they will say, man, this is so big. This is so massive. How could God possibly come through in this moment? You see how they flip that? What you feed grows. And so if we feed doubt, if we feed fear, if we feed focusing on the problem, that is going to be the only thing that your attention is set to. You will be distracted from the Lord. And instead of having a deep faith that says, man, I don't know how this is going to happen, I don't know how the Lord's going to come through, but I trust that He's going to, we begin to allow our fears and our doubt to control our faith. What I want you to pick up, just as a side note, is look at verse 33. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. When they had a distorted view of God, they had a small view of themselves. When they began to see God not as this big, powerful God that's going to come through, that is faithful, that is walking with them, that cares for them and loves them, when they have this distorted view that God is distant and He does not care about them, and He might come through, He may not, what does it do to them? To them, they're coming through with no self-confidence, no ability to say we are the children of God, that God's going to come through, and this is my identity. I'm a well-loved son. I'm a well-loved daughter of God. They come in and they say, I'm a grasshopper. I am this big. And so this is where that wilderness begins to get tricky, because just as much as an opportunity for you to grow in your faith, as much as there's an opportunity for you to have God scoop out those idols, to scoop out the things that are not good for us and replace them with good things, there is an equal opportunity for it to go the other way. where instead of a new identity in Christ, we walk away feeling even smaller and smaller and smaller. So how we respond in those moments and what we do with our fear matters. God and Caleb in this moment, he's not saying that he's not scared. He's not saying that he knows that it's not going to be difficult. But Caleb in this moment is saying, I'm going to choose to trust God. That faith over fear doesn't mean that you don't have any fear. So don't get it wrong. Strong Christians, those that really believe in the Lord, it doesn't mean that they never experience fear, they never experience doubt. But in those moments, they choose faith over their fear, faith over their doubt. And so my question for you is, what are you anchored to and what has your attention? When you're walking through the wilderness, what is distracting you from your faith in God? What is it that has your attention and your focus? When I first started driving, it's not super long time ago, but a couple of years ago, I would have this problem where if I got distracted driving and I'm looking over to my left, then my car drifts this way. And if I'm looking at something over to my right, then my car drifts that way. And so we may not have to take real big leaps off of faith in God, but if I'm distracted by something, I can easily begin to fade and go in that direction. Whatever you're looking at, whatever has your attention, whatever is filling your thoughts, that is where you're going to drift. And what you feed grows. And so are you feeding faith and saying, I'm trusting you, God, I'm scared, I am fearful, Lord, I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm just going to trust you? Are you saying, man, the problem is too big and I am like a grasshopper? Let's keep going. Numbers 13:30. I just want to draw attention back to Caleb. It says, then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Caleb's focus and his choice of faith is not in himself. It was not in his military power. It was not in the numbers of their people. It was a faith and trust in God. And again, I've already said it, but I just want to draw back to it. Having faith in God does not mean that there's an absence of fear. It does not mean that there's an absence of doubt, an absence of struggle. It means that you are very actively choosing faith over those things. In battle, and I'll get into an example of this, what is the only way that you can grow courage? It is for you to face moments that demand courage. It's the same with your faith. The only way that you begin to grow in a deep faith of facing the unknown is that you have to face the unknown. You have to go through things where you don't have the answer and you can't save yourself. You are very much in a wilderness. And so if you want the deep faith and the people that we look up to as we read through Scripture, you have to face moments where you can't save yourself. Moments and potential for you to fall flat on your face. Because then, as you trust God, you will start to see that He's coming through more and more and more, and that builds your faith step by step by step. Your pathway is beginning to be built towards faith. But you have to go through things that demand faith. Audie Murphy was an American soldier, and in January 1945 in Holowitz, France, his unit became under attack. They were attacked by tanks and infantry, and the Americans started to lose. So they began to pull back their forces, and Audie knew that if they pulled back, that was only a matter of time before his unit was wiped out. He knew that if they retreated, they were dead. And so Audie did the unthinkable thing, and instead of retreating, he actually moved forward into a tank that was on fire, hopped in the machine gun, and held down the German forces for over an hour. As he's holding down the German forces, he's also calling in artillery strikes. It's multitasking. And as he holds them off for an hour, it allows those that he served with, his regiment, to be able to get into cover, and he saved their life. He's awarded a Medal of Honor for it. What's interesting is, as Audius talked about this experience, Audius brings up two things. The first one is that it has been his experience in the battlefield that helped him to take that first step towards the tank. It was his experience in the past that gave him the strength to be able to take a step forward. But the second thing that he's also very, very, very clear about is that he was scared and fearful out of his mind. But the thing that drove him was that he loved the people that he served with. And those were some of his closest friends. He said, if I ended up dying and saving their life, it was well worth it. And so I share his story because a lot of times that can be what faith is like. It doesn't mean that we're not scared. It doesn't mean that we're not fearful. It doesn't mean that we feel like we're up against all odds. But we have to take that first step. We have to choose and say, God, I'm going to trust you in my situation, even though it does not make logical sense and my amygdala is firing at full power right now, and I'm scared out of my mind. And so, church, as we go from here, I just go back to the middle of the sermon. What are you feeding? Are you feeding a faith and a trust in the Lord? Or are you feeding your fear and all of the possibilities? Because what you feed will grow, and it will decide how you cross the finish line. Let me pray. Jesus, we come to you on just such a glorious day. Lord, thank you for the beautiful weather, the sun. God, it's these little things that just remind us of your grace and your mercy in our life, of how you love us just to provide the smallest of blessings. God, as we journey through the wilderness, as we face difficulty and scarcity, God, may we be careful to see your hand in all areas of our life, so that we might have the faith to pass, to make the most of the opportunities that you lay ahead of us, that we may walk in your footsteps. And so, God, give us the grace and mercy to sustain us. Give us the faith to trust you, and the strength and the courage to take the steps that we need to choose you over our fears and our struggles. Lord, may our eyes be ever set on you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.